everyone. My name is Klaudia Tirico, and I'm the editor of Demand Gen Report, and we're back with another episode of CXO Conversations. With me today is Reachdesk co-founder and CRO Alex Olley, and it's the first time we're meeting, so I'm so excited. Alex, it's great to see you. It's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Hey, not at all. My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this one. I've been looking forward to it for a while.
Yes, it's been a long time coming for sure. So to kick things off, I'd love for you to just tell our audience a little bit about yourself and Reachdesk, of course. Let us know, a little bit about your role as CRO, how long you've been in this role, and some of your top priorities and key learnings so far.
Sure. All right. A little bit about me. As you can hear, I'm British. I'm from London. I'm actually in London at the moment, heading back to New York soon. But I love all the things that you expect from me being a Brit. I love cricket, I love tea, I love walking my dog in the countryside, all those good things. But yeah, a little bit about Reachdesk. We're a global sending platform. So we help B2B companies remove all the friction and the headaches related to sending gifts and direct mail whilst giving you the visibility into the ROI and the success of your campaigns. We help businesses actually do this all over the world. Ultimately, it's bigger than that for me, though. It's all about delivering what I call moments that matter to customers and employees as well. We have a lot of businesses using us for HR reasons now and people reasons. But that's so businesses can continue to build deeper connections and do it all in the click of a button. So you asked about my role. I kind of have two roles at Reachdesk. I've got like the CRO role. I lead the revenue function. So everything related to marketing, sales, account management. Been in this role since day one because one of the founders, so I started it. I've got a background in sales. My other role in this business is actually about helping sales and marketing professionals get the most out of their direct mail and gifting campaigns and their programs. Thinking about how do you tie this into an ABM program, or how do I do it as a part of my customer marketing program? So I sit down with customers a lot and map it out with them, which I absolutely love. You asked me about like my priorities. Mm-hmm. Two big ones for me really at the moment because of the stage of the business we're at. We've recently raised our Series B, so a lot of it is about scale, right? But at the same time, it's about experience. And I've been part of 5 businesses before, startups, that have tried to scale, and the experience can often drop off both internally and for your customers. So I'm always trying to find ways to marry the two together. As a tech company, like things change weekly. It's easy to make these changes that make sense on like a balance sheet or in an Excel doc, but they need to reflect the experience that we need to continue to deliver for our people and ultimately our customers. As I said, I've been part of too many companies that have done it before, and a lot of them, we focus on scale only, focus on the balance sheet, and we don't think about what sits outside of the spreadsheet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that, you mentioned change, right? There's tons of changes all the time. And obviously we went through a big change in the past 2 years. And direct mail had its moments, and then there weren't some moments, and then we came back to it because at first, when we all kind of had to start working from home and everything shut down, people assumed, and I actually remember writing a story in March 2020 about direct mail still being relevant during a pandemic. Even though everybody was working from home, you didn't really, we didn't really have to focus on sending things to the office, but we had to be able to get approval to send things to people's house. So people weren't sure if that was going to happen. But then we quickly realized, right, that there was still a place for direct mail in marketing strategies. With people working from home, and it really proved to be a really key strategy for generating engagement throughout the pandemic, whether it was driving attendees to virtual events or doing having sales reps conduct virtual meetings and things like that. So now that we're coming into the end of 2021, things are slowly starting to go back to pace in a sense. Obviously not really back to normal, but we're going back to the office. Some events are opening up in person. What do you see as the current state of direct mail now at this point in time?
Yeah, it's a good one. I still remember the day when that happened. Before, Reachdesk was all about, we would send to people's offices. That was it. We hadn't even thought about sending to people's homes. I remember the day when all of our customers called us up saying, hey, we can't really use you anymore because we need to send to people. So it's a pretty scary moment, by the way. You think it's all over all of a sudden. And then we basically, we set ourselves this goal: within a week, we need to find a way to reach people at home. And then it kind of got further. It was like, not just at home. Think about what happened. Like, lots of people started moving out of the cities. Lots of people started becoming like digital nomads. They were kind of hop from place to place just because they could, because we had more flexibility. So we actually had to kind of meet them on their terms, really. That was kind of one of those initial challenges. And now we're coming to the end of, well, hopefully what is the worst of this pandemic. I actually don't think what we've seen over the past 2 years is actually going to change drastically in terms of what we're doing, because I think people will still continue to, in essence, go back to the problem. They'll still continue to receive hundreds of emails. They'll still continue to see loads of ads. There's still a lot of digital noise, right? So we're still going to need this channel to help businesses cut through the clutter and continue to build these deeper connections. But I think it's about, we should think about how we do it in a smarter way, really. And what I saw over the past 2 years is more campaign led. And what I mean by that is, let's just load up, let's do a big direct mail campaign. Let's do 500 sends. And there's kind of a law of diminishing returns. If you just keep doing that, you kind of run out of resource and accounts to do it, really. What I'm seeing now is that we're starting to think about the life cycle of the customer life cycle, the buyer life cycle, even the employee life cycle, and start to map out what are those key moments that matter within the customer journey that might have a meaningful impact while solving those key business issues. So you kind of remove the direct mail component, the gifting component, and think, where are we struggling, right? And then how can we address that? And then how can we tie direct mail and gifting into that business issue? And I'll give you an example. I'll give you a customer example. Maybe it's not focused on marketing too much. Let's say your account management team, they might be doing QBRs with enterprise customers, good attendance rates and everything, but they're not getting executives to show up. It's really critical to get execs to sponsor you as a provider. And would it hurt if you sent that executive a personalized gift in advance, kind of saying that, by the way, this is how successful we've been with you, and write what I call the champion letter, by the way. Your main champion in your business has been really great, and here's the ROI we've generated, and then put that on a bottle of champagne and send it to them. Right? Are you more likely to get exec buy-in because you're doing those things that perhaps weren't expected to increase experience? If the answer is probably yes, then start thinking on those lines. So my advice really at the moment is that let's get rid of the campaigns as much as possible. Start thinking about what are those touch points and those business issues we're trying to solve, and then get creative and then drive experience through that. And that's where we're seeing massive success.
I love that. And that's great. And, especially, like you mentioned, there are so many members now of a buying group, right? And you can't just reach every single one of them with a catchy subject line, right? You in an email, you want to, showcase and stand out from the crowd with something nice and something special and something to say, oh, hey, they're really thinking about us. Let's set up a call. So I love that. And now that we're going, events are changing. Obviously, some of us are going back full blown in person. There's still some hybrid components there. If you are doing a live event, maybe add a digital component to that, or we're just sticking with virtual. So tell me about some ways that we could, in these days now, leverage a direct mail and gifting to drive attendance to these types of hybrid events and really stand out from all of the other virtual and hybrid events that are going to be probably coming up in the next few years.
Yeah, that's such a great question. I never thought I would hear the word hybrid event, but that's where we are. It's a wonderful thing, and I don't necessarily think we should just focus on the drive attendance. It's the engagement during the event. It's what happens afterwards. Because if you don't cover all three, you could just see massive drop off, and you could invest a lot in that happening. So I break it down in those three categories, right? Think about what you're doing before an event. And, a lot of marketers, a lot of businesses started using account-based strategies. So they've got their priority accounts. So you might want to make sure that, there are two components, right? There's the virtual side and there's the physical side. Let's focus on the physical side first. Let's say you are hosting an actual physical part of the event. You're going to be there in person. How do you actually get someone to come and talk to you? Right, you need to drive that engagement and awareness beforehand to make sure that you're the one provider that they are thinking about. And you ultimately want to invite them in, as it were. So one example that I've heard from one of our customers recently, this is brilliant, is that they're sending out these golden tickets before the event, and simple golden ticket in an envelope with a note. So it's literally like direct mail. And then if you bring it with you, you get to enter into this prize draw. It's like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, essentially. And so you're kind of drawing them in, you have a conversation there, right? And then you're capturing mind share, really. You're sort of really enticing them towards you, but then you're occupying their mind share, which I think is really important in marketing. So how do you use it before events to like actually drive that footfall? But then you've got the digital component with hybrid events as well, where people are like attending online. So give them the reason to show up, right? If you say, hey, look, at the beginning of a session, you want to continue the engagement. If you guys stay till the end, we'll buy you lunch. Right? Why not do something as simple as that? And then when the event is over, you just trigger something, send them like a digital gift where they can order themselves lunch, and then they're there. So you reward them, but you tell them in advance. So those are things that you can do to like do pre-engagement. Within the physical component of hybrid events, one of the things that I'm on a bit of a mission on, to be honest with you, is about how do we reduce swag. I've been to too many events where you take loads and loads of swag, you take hundreds of t-shirts, stress balls, all this stuff, and it's all like, to get it there, it's massive carbon footprint. You're boxing it all up, it's not great. A lot of it gets put in the trash. I say the bin, by the way, because I'm English, but in the trash or the bin, whatever we're going to say. And I just don't like it. So we're actually trying to say to our customers, well, look, why don't you just bring a smaller amount as samples, but then send it to people's homes so they don't have to carry it home. They only send themselves what they need, really. And what that really does is it links to that final component, which is what happens after the event. Because then you have a reason to follow up, because you can know, and then with tools like ours, you can see, hey, that item arrived. You should have a follow-up nurture sequence based on that specifically. Or if it's like a top account, give it to the salesperson they met at the event. They can send it from themselves with a note, and they can follow up afterwards. And then you drive the engagement. It's always continuing. So there's so much you can do with it, not just in terms of the sustainability component, but how do you continue that engagement, that conversation, so that you can have that business opportunity to lead to.
I am so glad you mentioned the sustainability component, because that has been my just issue with events in general. Is just like, you're getting all these random knickknacks that it's just not sustainable. Like, people, maybe they'll use it for like 1 or 2 days, and then it just gets tossed in the trash. So I love the idea of digital type of gifts, whether it's a gift card to buy lunch or something like that, or even the charitable component too, right? Make a donation or plant a tree if you attend or something like that. So I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I have such a big problem with all this random crap that gets thrown around the events, and all these flyers and printable things and all that stuff. So are there any other unique, sustainable type gifts that you've seen your customers kind of do and offer to audiences?
Yeah, there are hundreds, quite literally. I mean, look, you mentioned the charitable component. This is what I call anti-swag. It's the, hey, instead of sending yourself some swag to your home or taking it with you, we'll happily donate the proceeds to charity. We have like numerous providers that in our system that allow you just to automate that so that you can track it all. But in terms of the actual like items themselves, think about a lot of the things. Let's focus on events for now, because I could go on about this for hours, by the way. We get sent wireless phone charging mats. We get sent USB sticks, all these things. I don't even know if we do USB anymore, because I don't think anyone needs it. But like, it's really simple. Like, remove all the plastic and the casing, and then just make it out of bamboo, right? If you're going to use it, like, make it out of materials that actually can be reused, or aren't like contributing to the negative effect. So just think about that. Firstly, what it's being made out of, but also like, do people need some of these things, like stress balls? I see stress balls at every event. I'm not sure how many. I mean, maybe we are already stressed, but I don't see anyone using them. But start thinking about like just reducing things and giving people things that they can reuse. Metal water bottles are just so easy to do, and everyone wants them, and they get used all the time. You see them being used. But just think about the reusable component that might actually contribute to someone's day-to-day life. And also, if you get it right, they're always using it. We hear this all the time. We like send these boxes to people with cookies in. They can reuse the box. but it's got their logo and their name on the box, by the way, not the company who sent its logo and name. So if you make it about them, we see people jumping on calls with us like, I've still got my box, by the way, I'm going to put my keys in it and it's awesome. Like, make it about them and make them want to keep it and reuse it.
Yeah, that's a really great point too with the logos. I love that idea, especially because obviously today's B2B buyers really demand a personalized and customized experience for them. So that level of personalization is really nice. What other, if people aren't, sending boxes that, they could engrave, maybe they don't have the budget for things like that. How can marketers personalize their direct mail experiences in other ways?
Yeah, it's a great question. First thing that springs to mind, honestly, it seems so obvious, is the note, is the actual message that comes with it. I see too many direct mail and gifting campaigns that don't contain one. And I actually received one the other day, by the way. In my letterbox, I got a book. There was no note with it. I actually don't know who sent me that. And I think someone might have entered me into a competition or something, I'm not sure. But I'd actually quite like to thank that person for that. But that's just like an isolated example. In general, like the note that's half the battle. So even if you're doing it yourself in like small volumes, you're packing boxes in your office together, get that note right. And the thing I see all the time, by the way, is people don't address people by their first name. They'll just send this generic message that's the same for everyone. Whereas if you get it right, it's like, hey, Alex, I noticed you guys just, hired your 200th employee or just raised your Series B, whatever it was. Like that small context is the same as writing a personalized email. So get that bit right first. It's mesmerizing how easy that's forgotten about. It's just so obvious. But the note is the bit personalization that I think is really key. But you can go to town with this, honestly. You can do so much with this channel, and that's why I love it so much, because it appeals to all 5 senses of ours, right? You can, if it's edible, you can taste it, you can see it, touch it, smell it, hear it. It can literally, and if it's playing sound, you can go to town on it. But the second bit of advice after the note really is like, you just need to think about what you're sending. If you're doing it on a one-to-one basis, you probably need to understand a little bit more about that person. Like if it's a prospect of yours who you've already had a conversation with, and they've mentioned something around their favorite drink, don't overthink it. Just send them something like that with a little note. And if you can, there are so many businesses that can engrave their name on it. Like we have a provider actually we use in our platform that can put your name and your logo on it, even like a QR code that you can scan it and it will lead to a vidyard, whatever you want to do. But like you just need to understand that person a little bit more before you send the gift. And it doesn't need to be overcomplicated.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you have to understand your audience and your buyer for everything nowadays. You have to know what kind of content they want to read. You have to know what their issues are, and how you could solve them, because it's no longer about just your product, right? It's about the audience. So having that audience centric mentality, even with gifting, is very, very important.
Yeah, 100%.
So clearly, data obviously it makes the world go round. Plays a big role in many marketing strategies, sales strategies, especially in, personalization, right? You have to know the customer, so you have to have the data on them. So I'd love to hear about how Reachdesk uses, all the data at their disposal. Even intent data now is a really hot topic. What do you guys do to make sure your data is up to par and is able to help you provide, your prospects, customers, with that customized experience?
Yeah, you mentioned the up to par thing first. Now, I think it's harder for us from a data perspective because we're European and we're US entity, so we're kind of spanning the two. So we have to think about multiple data sets, which data sets are going to be better enriched in what territories. So that's part of it. If you find yourself as an international business with one source of data, you're in trouble, I think. I'll probably get into trouble for saying that. But it's like, you got to think holistically and like, what are those data points, but not just for the sake of having it. Again, it goes back to what I said before around the moments that matter. Like every business, and I do this all the time with my team. We map out like our journey, what are the moments that we need to address? And to give you an example, one of the most successful ones for us, particularly within our BDR team, is because we use gifting, like to reward people for big milestones in their lives. right? So when you have a job promotion or you start a new job or something like that, we send a gift to them to congratulate it, and it starts off the conversation, right? And they reciprocate with their time. So we need to be looking for that data source as one element, like as a trigger. So what the job change component, it seems so obvious when you follow it up with actually doing something rather than what everyone else does, which is they go on LinkedIn and they go, congrats on the new role. Would you have a meeting with me? Everyone's just done that. Hundreds of people have done that. It's a great data source, but you've got to back it up with some action that's going to be meaningful and actually stand out and shatter their expectations ultimately. So what we look for is again, as I said, the trigger components. What are those that are going to drive those initial conversations for us? What are the ones that happen when we're having conversations, right? And then what happens at those key moments for our customers too? The onboarding element to it, when they have successfully onboarded, those QBRs, those renewal dates, they've tested a new product. We look at all those data sources, and then we try and deliver the best possible experience at all those moments because they matter to us and our customers. So that's one component. Then you mentioned intent data. This part of the market is incredibly exciting, but it's also really, really hard to do because we get signals such as you have third-party intent, which there are so many tools out there that are mastering this right now, which say, hey, look, these companies are searching for these words in your category. And so you've then got this big decision to make, like, how do we go after that? Because it could be like a 10,000 person company. Who do we go after? So you've got to map your personas accurately against that. What's the messaging? So because someone's searching for direct mail and gifting, what's the message for the SDR that's doing the outreach there? That's really hard. And so you kind of have to start building this playbook out against those intent signals that enable your team to actually have an accurate conversation. Otherwise, you're just, again, canvassing and blanket marketing people. So that's a challenge. So what we do is we break it down. And so we look at things like there are signals like, for example, G2. They have a really good intent product which says this company is looking at your pricing page on G2, right? So we know they're probably in the market right now, but we don't necessarily go back to them and say, hey, here's our pricing, by the way, because they've probably seen it. So we think about what's the next thing they might want to understand, right? We could see that business is based in Germany. They might be more interested in our USP, which is around the international component of our business. So let's lead with content, and then we ungate it, by the way. Nothing's gated. You just lead with value and continue to do so. So intent, I'm probably going to spend the next 5 years trying to figure out how to use it effectively, but those are just some small examples.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah. I mean, it's really hard having so much. It's great to have all this data, right? But at the end of the day, having too much of something could get really overwhelming and you just really don't know where to start.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And I think that's why, for me, it's about bringing it back to your business. Those moments, those key touch points. Don't try and do everything. There's an old saying that companies don't die from starvation; they die from indigestion. Right? We have, and I'm not saying everyone's going to go down that route, but the lesson there really is like don't try and do too much. Focus on the key business issues that you're trying to solve, and then reverse engineer it from there.
Awesome. So we talked about a lot of best practices and strategies and some great gifting options and ideas. So off the hook, what do are there any specific campaigns that maybe Reachdesk has done or maybe a customer has done that really stand out to you that really cover all those bases that we just talked about?
That's a good one. I can think of a couple of examples. One is actually one I saw recently, which is really cool, very simple, by the way. Anyone can do this. I spoke to one of our customers. What they did is they just sent a box of cupcakes, like really simple. It's like, oh, why are we still talking about cupcakes? I seem to spend half my time doing that. There's so much you can do with them, apparently. Anyway, there were 6 in a box, and half of them had the target accounts logo on, these 3. And the other half had the QR codes on. And what they were asked to do was just scan the code. And when they scanned it, it took the prospect to a landing page, which had like a customized, personalized video, like a welcome message from the individual rep. It also had like loads of other content. I think they were probably using something like an Uber Flip to like personalize all the content around it, but it was just like, it was so well orchestrated because it's a box of cupcakes at the end of the day, but it's got their logo on, it's got a personalized note with it, it drives them to a call to action. It was just done so well. I just loved the experience, and apparently their response rates were like plus 75%, so it's like really high. We do stuff all the time like that. We did one recently where for all customers that were ghosting our sales team because it was Halloween. We would send these big boxes of like chocolate ghosts, being like, and it said boo, or and yeah, it's all about the messaging. It's how you tie it all together. You can do so much with it, but those are just two that spring to mind.
Yeah, I love that, and just having fun with it, being, on theme like for Halloween or a holiday or things like that. But I also did not know that QR codes work on food. So that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's, it was so funny to me that QR codes actually like really made a comeback in my opinion,
Yeah.
within, during the pandemic, especially now, no more menus at restaurants, you're using the QR code. So, and I love that cupcake idea because it's also sustainable, right? You're not really printing any paper or anything like that. You're just strictly keeping it digital, and then they could eat, the cupcakes afterwards and then still have that digital experience. So I love that idea. What are, final few questions here, just last few takeaways for the audience, some best practices or tips to successfully start a direct mail campaign or incorporate direct mail within marketing campaigns in this new normal. Just throw some best practices at me.
Sure. Look, in the new normal, it is quite different. Beforehand, you could get away with it a little bit more because you could literally just like do what I call desk drops. So you get in the morning, but like something on your desk. But now you've got to meet people on their own terms, really. You've got to get them to opt in. If you're going to, like 99% of our sends at the moment are to people's homes or wherever they're working. So best practice right now is actually the hard work you've got to do before to create engagement. Right, you really got to think about those things and don't do it for the sake of doing it. You've got to do it to be really intelligent. Like, being honest with you, I don't think I would give my address to a total stranger if I didn't have any context around it. So best practice is actually thinking about this before the send. Right? Think about what channels can you use to bring out your personality and introduce yourself and give your prospect or target account, whatever it is, a bit more of an introduction on you and some context, really. So really small stuff. And we see it in two ways, by the way. We see marketing using it, which is more like led from the business side of things. But then we see salespeople using it, which is the individual basis. And that's where it has its highest impact. And so it's all about enabling that. And when you put the two together, marketing and sales should be very aligned. And the best companies using direct mail and gifting now are the ones where marketing's thinking about how do I actually enable individuals to send and not just let's send big campaign messages before. That's where the highest impact is going to be. So that's the first thing, is really like, how do we build up that engagement? How do we align with our sales team? How do we make sure that we're all on the same page and make sure that there's context around why we're doing it? Ultimately, and this is always surprising to me, is the bit that I see that's the biggest miss when we're using the physical channel. So when we're using direct mail and gifting, is actually the follow-up. We've seen that I think 75% of the time you won't receive an automatic response from someone. It's so sad. It's like we've just done so much. We've got something so great and we've done so much to get you, but everyone's busy, right? And they're not necessarily just going to hit you up straight away. They might take a couple of days, and actually the engagement's going to drop. Time kills everything in the world of sales and marketing. So out of the non 25% who are going, thank you so much, or posting it on LinkedIn and doing all that great stuff, think about the follow-up strategy. And this is the key component, because timing is everything. Like I've always said that you need to, after something lands on someone's desk or at their home, you need to be following up within 24 hours minimum, really. And so having that insight is key. And when you do have that and you know something's happened, whether you're doing it manually yourself, by the way, and you're looking in the tracking codes of all the receipts you've sent, which ideally you shouldn't have to, or you're using a platform like ours which automates it, that's when you should be thinking, well, what is that message I'm going to send afterwards? It shouldn't just be, hey, I sent you a gift, can we have that call? That's not good at all. It's like, hey, start a conversation in a more meaningful way, right? Ask them how do they find it? Like, make sure there's a bit more meaningfulness rather than just cut straight to the chase. But a follow-up strategy should come in several components. You should be thinking about, how do I load this up into our cadencing tool, like a sales loft, for example, and have like a persona-led strategy as a follow-up there. But ultimately, that's my advice. Best practice is get the follow-up right, and then you'll see massive results.
Awesome. Let's switch gears a little bit and maybe have you put your CRO hat on. Tell me, as a CRO at Reachdesk, tell me about your priorities. What do you look for when it comes to, gauging the success of your teams, and what really keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night, other than my 2-year-old son? Yeah, look, I think I said it before, right? A lot of it at the moment for us as a business is around scale. And I've fallen into the trap in the past of just thinking too much about that. Getting the spreadsheet and the model right. As a CRO, you've got to break everything down by channel and conversion rates, and you've got to think about quotas and progression and everything. But ultimately, that has to happen to sustain the business. But the thing I'm always thinking about is that how do I help my team grow? Because for me, honestly, leadership is all about other people's growth. If you can put them in a position where they almost don't need you anymore, you're probably doing your job right. So what keeps me up at night is when I feel like I'm not doing that enough. So I'm a huge believer in servant leadership. I'm a huge believer in investing in people. The moment, the market for hiring is hard. It's probably the hardest it's ever been, to be honest with you, since 2008. And so keeping your people engaged and keeping them focused on their growth and how you're going to enable that is always my key driver, because I want to keep the best talent, but I also need to attract them as well. So if I can show from other people's growth that new talent coming in will get the same, then it's a great talent driver as well. So it's all about people, being honest with you. And ultimately, if you have happy people, you have happy customers, and your customers can sense it. I don't know why people think it's not the case, but your customers, particularly in your customer success and account management teams, they know if your people are happy because they're working proactively for you and they're getting you to find more success with your products and services. And so that's why people always need to come first.
I love that. And that's absolutely, 100% true. I keep hearing about the great resignation and how difficult everything is. So that's great. Now, in terms of, your peers, other C-level executives, other co-founders of companies, anyone you talk to, since the title of this series is CXO Conversations, I always want to ask, what types of conversations are you having with your peers and other CROs in the space? What are some top questions or key concerns that you're hearing, and how are stress levels changing nowadays?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I didn't expect this, and I'm talking to a lot of other CROs and VPs of sales at the moment, and CMOs as well. We're talking a lot more about investing in our customers more. Even CROs who I've typically been there, let's get more new logos in, let's drive that sort of that upper funnel growth as much as possible. And actually the conversations are turning into far more interesting ones around how do we get more out of our existing customers? How do we build teams that are actually not just selfishly in the business interest to generate more revenue, but how do we start with getting the right experience, and therefore as a result we'll get more growth out of our existing customers? That's one of the biggest topics right now, is do we really want to spend so much time and effort and cost in acquiring more customers? I'm not saying we shouldn't do it at all, but the focus is starting to shift towards our existing customer base. And even as a business here, we're thinking how do we build whole new products for whole new verticals so that we can cross-sell and upsell and actually get the same customer, but actually give them a lot more. So the strategy then filters down to the product team and an exec level as to how we can refocus our business to make sure that we can widen things. So we still need to drive a lot of net new, but the existing customer base seems to be the exciting conversation.
Yeah, that's great. Final question for you. What's next for you? What's next for Reachdesk? I know you just said you guys got some funding. How are you going to spend all this money?
On cupcakes? No, I'm only joking. Yeah, look, well, I mean, there are two things I think you asked, but for me and for Reachdesk. But look, as a business, as you mentioned, we just raised our Series B. We're scaling globally. We're in Portugal. We're in New York in the US, and we're in London in the UK as well. So it's about how do we grow the business on that international basis, but also how do we continue to deliver for our customers and keep investing in product and engineering, but ultimately how do we do that on a global scale, because that's what we're known for, is being able to do this across multiple territories. But as a business, I think the most exciting bit that's just been released actually is this whole release, we called it Reachdesk Insights. So it's ultimately enabling people in the industry to know when to send to people, like who to send to and what to send. So it's a bit of a groundbreaker in that we can now leverage the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of direct mail and gifting sends that we've done over the years and actually start to share the insights from it and then surface it in our platform. So as a business, we're doing that so we can give people that layer of intelligence. And what we're going to do at the same time is we're going to be writing about our learnings, because we use our tool too, and then just write loads of content to help people send better. So that's us as a business, really. For me, I'm kind of just looking forward to getting back on a stage and maybe doing a bit more speaking, meeting people at live events. That's going to be the exciting bit. But I'm also excited about hopping on a plane to New York this weekend to go and see our US team, because I haven't met 90% of them. And I'm looking forward to going chatting with some of the few that I did know and had met in person before this all kicked off. So yeah, that's it really.
Awesome. All great things. And of course, safe travels to New York. That's so exciting and fun. I need to get myself out there myself. I live like 20 minutes away and I've only been like once or twice in the past 2 years. So maybe I'll meet you out there.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
Alex, that's all the questions I have for you today. Thank you so much for shedding some light on modern direct mail strategies with our audience. And thank you to everyone watching. That's a wrap on another episode of CXO Conversations. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will see you next time for sure. One more thing, of course, hit that like button, subscribe to our series so you don't miss any new episodes. And then, of course, catch me on LinkedIn or Twitter if you have any guest ideas or just want to be a guest yourself. So thank you again, Alex. It was great to meet you. Hopefully I will see you in New York. And yeah, thanks everyone. Take care.